Rigoletto by Giuseppe Verdi. One of the challenges you face each time you encounter an opera in this course is to find a way to associate the name of the work with the name of the composer. And here it should be very easy for you to do because both the name of the work and the name of the composer are easily identifiable as Italian. You should have no difficulty doing this because you know enough about the language, enough about Italian titles, and Italian surnames to do so. Let's take a look at the title itself, Rigoletto. Take a look at its ending, etto. You have seen that before, haven't you? It looks like the ending of libretto. And you know in Italian that etto is a diminutive form of a word. Keep this in mind. It will help you to remember this character as well. Now let's take a look at the name of the composer, Giuseppe Verdi. We have not encountered a Giuseppe so far in this unit, but we have encountered a composer who has a name very similar to this one, Verdi. Think back to our first look at opera and the composer Claudio Monteverdi. It's just one of those neat coincidences in this course that all the composers to date whose surnames have ended with an I are from the Italian-speaking part of Europe, so it should be no trouble for you to associate this composer's surname and the title of this work with that language, Rigoletto, the Italian opera by the Italian composer Giuseppe Verdi. Okay, I know I've really knocked myself out on this, but you would be amazed at how many people will fail to make this very simple association when they sit down to take the exam on this unit. Please don't be one of those students. In terms of genre, this work is an opera, and of course genre will not be a substantial challenge to you in this unit. Both of the works in this unit are operas. You are, however, obligated to know how this opera by this composer differs from the opera written by the other composer in this unit. Indeed, although both works are of the same genre, their composers took substantially different approaches to the composition of such works. You must know the difference between Verdi operas and Wagner operas. The story of this opera is about as romantic as can be. Romantic in the sense of romanticism, that 19th century current of culture that we examined in our last unit. Indeed, this story is about as bizarre and macabre as they come. It is the story of a father's failed revenge, a tale that takes a hideous turn at its end. Now the plot of this opera is rather straightforward, and it should be very easy for you to remember and to be able to identify its three main characters. Remember that you will have to associate these characters with this opera and the three characters we examined from the other opera with that opera. Although you might imagine that we would begin by taking a look at the title character of this work, Rigoletto, we're going to instead take a look at the character in this opera who is basically the catalyst for the entire story, the Duke. To be more precise, the Duke of Mantua. The Duke is the employer of Rigoletto. Now the Duke and Rigoletto, even though they are from opposite ends of the social spectrum, do have something in common. Neither of them are nice guys. The Duke, in fact, is a Lothario. And I use the word Lothario rather than libertine, rake, roué or some other term, simply because I don't want to give libertines, rakes, and roués a bad reputation. A Lothario is a wanton seducer of women, and the Duke is a perfect specimen of the genre. Although the Duke is married, he pursues and seduces every woman that he meets, and he cares nothing about the consequences of his conquest. He will go after the wives of his courtiers, their daughters, etc. Basically, no woman is off limits to him as a potential conquest. Now that you know the word Lothario, you will know to what kind of person you ought to apply it. Rigoletto is the court jester to the Duke, and the two of them have about the same level of compassion toward the Duke's courtiers. At the very beginning of the drama, a count, one of the Duke's courtiers, pleads with the Duke for the return of his daughter. The Duke has seduced his daughter and taken her away, and the Count wants her back. Now the Duke feels no remorse for his actions, nor for the consequences of his actions, and so he pays no attention to the Count's impassioned pleas. And Rigoletto joins in the Duke's fun. In fact, Rigoletto mocks the Count and his plight, and he does so with such zest that the Count places a curse on him. Now a curse is the last thing that Rigoletto, a hunchback dwarf, needed in his life. Although he may have taken a certain wicked delight in his work, his circumstances were not all that great, especially his physical state and also his occupation. By the way, notice the combination of curse and dwarf. Didn't we see that sort of a thing in the Wagner opera? It's one of those things you have to sort out. By the way, you can easily remember that Rigoletto is a dwarf. Take a look at his name. It has the diminutive at the end of it. Something you might want to keep in mind to tell him apart from other characters. Now the one bright spot in Rigoletto's life is his daughter, Gilda. Gilda is everything that her father is not. She is the very incarnation of all that is good. She lives the quiet life sheltered in her father's house, and she leaves the house only to attend Mass each day. Unfortunately for her, she is misidentified by the Duke's friends at court. They imagine that Gilda, the beautiful young lady, is Rigoletto's mistress. Now when the Duke heard of a beautiful young lady, he cared not whether Gilda was Rigoletto's mistress or his daughter, and the Duke sets his sights on her. Disguised as an impoverished student, he gains her confidence and eventually wins her heart. She is tricked into leaving her home and to being spirited off to the Duke's castle under false pretenses, but once there she relaxes.